Picture this. You're walking along on a public pathway when suddenly you see two boys. They're both average and unremarkable, and at first you don't know why they caught your attention. But at second glance you see that one boy is standing in a confrontation away, while the other stands physically drawn inwards. And as you draw closer to these two boys, you finally hear their words, and all of a sudden you are struck with a landslide feeling of uncertainty. Hey, you're just a stupid Asian. Your mum doesn't even know how to drive. With this scenario presented to you, I ask you all, what would you do? While it is all hypothetical, the idea remains the same, that if an injustice was to happen that you were witness to, you would speak up. A great philosopher once said, "Silence gives your consent." To the beautiful judges, to the wonderful audience, and to my fellow speakers, I ask you all, I urge you all to give nothing to racism, most especially not your silence. The bystander effect is one of the most frequently discussed psychological phenomenons. The fundamental idea behind the bystander effect is as follows. When you are in a larger crowd, you are less likely to receive aid or assistance. This is due to a theory called the diffusion of responsibility. When placed in a situation such as the one previously stated, you have one of two options. One, you can walk away and ignore it. Because even though you have the understanding that what is going on is wrong, someone with much less on their plate can stop to help. And anyway, it's not your problem, right? Or option number two, you can speak up and stop the cycle of the bystander effect in its tracks. One psychological study in particular found that when people were confronted with the possibility of a suffering individual on a public pathway, most people reasoned that it was okay if they didn't stop to help this time because someone else would. This is called the passive bystander. We are psychologically conditioned into thinking that the actions of one person is generally the best option. The study claims that when there is a passive bystander in a situation where someone is in need of help, the surrounding general public is usually unknowingly socially pressured into doing the same as the passive bystander. The basic human inclination to stay within the status quo was against any genuine desire to help, and unfortunately, in most cases, wins. No one wants to blame when anything goes wrong, but on the flip side, no one wants to extend any help beyond their own plot of life. The biggest mistake that is made when considering racism is the thought that we need lavish actions and displays to battle it. In reality, all that's needed is understanding through empathy, humility, and kindness. It's understanding cultural differences between customs and discussing them with kindness, even when at times you don't understand. It's showing empathy to people who have experienced racism and letting them know that they have your support. It's showing humility to anyone who is used to seeing blame and hatred. These things can be expressed in the little things day to day. And these steps need to be taken as a united community. He ora te whakapiri, he mate te whakatakariri. There is strength in unity and defeat in division. This is what will change our country's race relations. A country where unity is found through empathy, humility, and kindness, where diversity thrives, is a change waiting to happen. The big question is, what can we do? Matthew chapter 7 verse 3 says, "Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye?" We, as individuals, must first confront our own racial prejudice. Surrounded by so many current and future leaders of race relations, it's easy to say, change must happen now. The hard part is recognizing any racism in yourself and changing the way you think. If you find yourself making a racial slur or having a cheeky giggle at someone's bush Māori joke, check yourself. By standing back and watching as an injustice happens, you are giving everyone else the okay to do the same. Big change starts small. While you have no control over anyone else, you can change how you yourself think. Next time you hear a derogatory comment aimed towards any race or person, challenge yourself to speak up. Give understanding to the victim with empathy and kindness, and face injustice with humility. As a wider community, we need to always be the first to react when racism occurs. We must consciously place ourselves outside of the cycle of the bystander effect and speak out against racism. If change doesn't begin with you, then who? So, picture this. Outside of your encompassing bubble of ignorance, you see an injustice happening on a public pathway. While the two boys stand close together physically, they think oceans apart. One stands in a confrontational way, while the other stands drawn inwards. I ask you all, what will you do? Will you give your silence to racism, or will you stop the cycle and instead give nothing?